that decision-making process, because I've been a part of some of these, and it's kind of interesting because I'm often getting calls from a lender saying who is seemingly in control. It seems like they have much more influence on, if we get an offer, they're like, we'd be open to it.
Yeah.
And it's a tough thing to balance, I guess, the certainty of getting theirs taken out, but then there's the equity on top of that, where maybe if you ran the process a little bit differently, more risk, but maybe they would be less secure. Like, how do you kind of balance those stakeholders?
Yeah.
And then also, can you walk us through the scenario where, like, sorry, long question, I know, but like, I don't sell that much land. I'm in existing multifamily sales. But like, receiverships used to be the cream of the crop, right? Like, you were psyched if you got a receivership because you're getting paid at the end. And now,
fair enough.
Like, oftentimes guys will list opportunities and it's either the lender or the receiver going, yeah, okay, we got 5 offers, but we're not happy. So let's just,
you're spot on. Right. And we've had a lot of those discussions. We work closely with a lot of different brokers, I'm sure a lot of them, but we've had pushback, and in some cases we'll reach out with an RFP and they'll just flat decline to submit, because it's a very difficult market. And the reality is the sites that we're getting are not the cream of the crop, right? We're getting sites with a lot of hair on them, right? That have all kinds of encumbrances and just different issues to deal with, whether it's planning issues or tax issues or
contamination.
Exactly. So yeah, we've had a number of brokers who just have kind of been a little frustrated, have gone through these processes, run a great sale process, and just not yielded any results that are satisfactory, right? And it's not to say anything about them; they did their job, right? But the offers coming in, I mean, look, there are developers and investors who have the capital to deploy right now. There's no question about that. But they're not stupid, right? They're looking for deals. They understand what the market conditions are. And in some of these cases where funds were advanced on a mortgage, 5 to 10 years ago, the value simply isn't there, right? And for a lot of lenders, they're not willing to take that kind of loss, and they're having to get creative. But a third-party offer in a standard or conventional sale process isn't going to cut it anymore.
Like, when you say they're willing to get creative, like, basically they don't see the result. I feel like there's so much of that going on. It's almost like every day you get the feeling that there's blood in the streets. Just like a couple of years ago, you're like, it feels like there's inflation, and they're like, no, that's a lie. And then it comes up that it's like the most inflation we've ever had, right? And so, like, the way I kind of
what comes to mind there is 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right?
Yeah. And so, like, it seems like there's a lot of this going on with development in particular, where it's kind of like you're just not seeing it. And like, you're not seeing it on as headline news. It's all being done discreetly. So like, at what point can you not kick the can down the road if you're not getting that sale? And all of these lenders have, these monstrous losses on their books that haven't been realized. Like, are we going to hit a point? Are things going to get resolved? What's the program?
Let's just rewind maybe a bit, and I think it ties into one of the last questions you asked as well. But the process, once we run a sale process, what we need to do as a court officer is report to the court on the results of that process, right? And those results can say we obtained, certain bids, and we're recommending as the receiver here that this bid be accepted, or it can say we ran this process and there are no results, right? And in some cases maybe ask for advice and direction, but that's not really where we like to go. So we have a discussion with the lender at that point and say, what are your thoughts on what we do here? And sometimes they'll say, I think maybe we can add value to the site, maybe revisit the density or other planning considerations. Maybe we just sit back, wait 6 months, and we'll accept the interest accrual for that period and then remarket it, hoping that the market's turned at that point. And then some lenders are just going to say, look, we'll buy the site out and we'll take it on, and either they'll sit on it, they'll find a JV partner to build it out and, have some form of participation so that they can get paid on the back end and recover their loan. But, that's not our decision to make, right? What we do then is go to court, and what the court's always going to look at for the sale of any of these properties, and this is where you deal with the improvident sale issue. There was a case, it was Royal Bank v. Sound Air, which I think, don't quote me on it, but early 90s, which set out the criteria that the court's going to look at in evaluating the fairness of a process and the integrity of a sale process. So I'm not sure what exactly led to this before. I guess there were some shady dealings to an extent, but what they look at now is they want to see how long was the property exposed for, how broad of a net did you, the receiver, cast on the market to make sure that you canvassed all of the probable buyers of this site. Was it conducted in a fair and transparent manner? Those types of issues, so that nobody can come back and say, yeah, the receiver went to his buddy. Jeff has a developer friend. He went to him and said, yeah, I got this great property, 50 million of debt, but you give me $2 million and you're good, right?
Yeah.
So none of that can happen in this type of court process. Not suggesting it would, just for clarity, but so at that point, if we are to recommend a sale, including a credit bid by the secured lender, we'll have to go and demonstrate to the court that we did everything we possibly could in the circumstances to obtain the best value for the property, right? And in some of these cases where we're getting offers at 20, 30 cents on the dollar, the lender does have a right to say, look, I've put in, let's take a property where the first mortgage debt is $10 million. They've already advanced the $10 million. Somebody in the market is offering 2 to 3 million. The lender will, if they have the appetite for this type of thing, say, okay, we'll credit bid it, meaning we'll put in up to $10 million of the funds that we've already advanced in the form of a bid, and we'll take the site back.
Yeah.
Right? And, the optics on that can be challenging in some scenarios, right? The loan to own type of terminology you're using. But in some other cases, it's just the best play, right? And you can't fault them, right? In a lot of the cases we're seeing now.
I was just going to say, who makes the ultimate decision in terms of you brought these 3 bids and then the lender obviously is there as well, but who makes that final call to actually complete that process?
So we as the court officer will make a recommendation. So we'll enter into an APS subject to court approval, right? The court puts a lot of faith in their court officers and the decisions that are made. We still have to obviously demonstrate to the court exactly what logic we use to come to our conclusion. So to answer your question, we make a recommendation, we being the licensed trustees or receivers, to the court, but ultimately it's the court who approves the transaction.